we're gonna wait few minutes more, like 5 minutes to start.
Hi there, Sebastian. How are you?
Fine, and you?
Yeah, doing well.
Yeah, very good. I need to
Hi.
meet you, Lucas.
Hi, Luca. How are you?
I'm good, Ash. Where are you? Where are you now?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's the situation there in Texas? Only bad news is what we get from here, but maybe it's not like that in the reality.
Yeah, that's what. So bad news always spreads faster than good news. But news is not great. But at the same time, everyone is just doing. We have been personally have been just more in self-regulated lockdown, minimize a lot of movements. I think it just is, at least here, it's going to be one step forward, one step backwards before we get a vaccine and cure. So it will just take its time. But
Okay.
yeah, so it's not ideal, but it's manageable.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think, of course, we need to take care and I don't know, prevent a lot, but life needs to go on, because if not, especially in these countries, the economic situation is going to be that bad that more people is going to die from hunger and other problems than from COVID-19. So I don't know. So somehow it cannot be any of the extremes, like the full lockdown or do whatever you want, but life cannot stop. It's going to be even worse.
But that's exactly it, is that here, at least in some of the, when they first, I don't, in the US, they didn't do enough testing or measures. And of course, we are talking about metrics and experimentation today. So that you need data first. And so you don't know, you're running blind. And then, yes, it's just really extremes. When you say go out, everyone goes out and parties on the beach, in the pool. And then it's lockdown or go out, but there has to be a middle ground. And that's something that, at least here in the US, they haven't implemented, or the people have not implemented well enough.
But things are getting really bad there.
Yeah, but it's math. I mean, so it's like exponential thinking. And when things reopen, people said, oh, it's very slow. It's not as bad, but it's the doubling effect. You start with 10 cases and then it's 20, and then soon it's, it's like 1 million every 15 days. And that's when people,
yeah. As anything exponential is something that, like, our minds are not prepared to understand things like that. As you were saying, it's like you end up doubling cases every week or every 2 weeks, and it gets out of control very fast.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Let's wait 1 minute more, and we're going to start.
Do you hear my son screaming, or a little bit?
Little bit. But that's the new normal. You have to have background noises.
I'm gonna use this better. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to do it like this.
I also changed the headphone, the headset, because some of them are really uncomfortable. Well, so I think we can start right now. It's already 5. So good afternoon to everybody. Hello again, to you, Ash, Lucas. We spoke a few days ago. Welcome to this virtual Lean Startup session. The Startup Night session is not all good, it's not night yet, but it's going to be night soon. My name is Sebastián Castrillón from Stratec. I'm a Lean Startup Companies ambassador here in Colombia. This Lean Startup Night is an event created by Stratec in partnership with the Lean Startup Company, which was born out of Eric Ray's book, the Lean Startup Method. I think a lot of you may know it. So the Lean Startup Company basically provides education services on innovation, modern management, and Lean Startup methodologies for government, for enterprises, for non-government sector, and so on. And on the other hand, there is Stratec, which is basically a leading company in Colombia in the corporate venturing field. We are basically a corporate startup factory, if you can call it like that. Basically, what we do is to start up new ventures on behalf of huge corporations using the Lean Startup Method principles and practices, and particularly we use Ash Maurya's frameworks, and tools and everything to perform, all our services in a model called Startup as a Service. That in some is what I just said, is just to be an entrepreneur and create like new startups for a third party, which is normally a big company. So before I move on to introduce our guests of honor that you already saw them, in the poster, I want to invite you, to follow us in our social media channels. You may find us as, like Stratec _Ventures and Lean Startup Co. Also, you may go to our websites, www.stratec.com.co and leanstartup.co. And another thing important, I think, is that I want to remind you that you may leave any question that you consider relevant for this conversation. You can leave it in the chat, and we're gonna go through them later on this conversation, and we will have like 20 minutes at the end of the session to answer them. So that's all. So first of all, I want to thank both of you guys for being here, for your willingness to join us in this event and to share your thoughts and experiences regarding this important topic about the importance of having systematic experimentation for disruption within big corporations. I think that me as a corporate entrepreneur, that this is one of the most complicated things to do when you are inside a bureaucratic and a traditional company. So we're going to start right now by briefly introducing the two of you. First, we have Ash. I don't know if Ash, if I'm going to say everything that you have done, because you have done a lot of things in your life. I'm going to do my best. So we have Ash Maurya, that he's an extraordinary serial entrepreneur, as most of you know. He's been involved within several technology startups for more than a decade. I think about 15 years, something like that. You will tell us a bit more later. And as most of you also may know, he is the author of Running Lean, Scaling Lean, and the creator of the Lean Canvas. He has dedicated all his efforts in the last, I don't know how many years, Ash, maybe 10, 15 years, helping entrepreneurs finding their way, finding the business model using these Lean Startup principles. And when I first got to know about the existence of Ash, it was like 5 years ago or something like that. I made a click with two of his main statements. The first one is that life is too short to build something that nobody wants. I love it. And second one is love the problem, not the solution. And I think that's very important for experimentation, those statements. Then we had the fortune to have him here in Medellin in 2016 in an event that we co-produced with Rutaene. And I remember having Ash eating paisa, straight hot dog in El Parque El Poblado. A weird experience, Ash, or what?
Yeah.
So thank you for being here, mate.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for hosting.
And also we have Lucas Lopez, which is the VP of Marketing and Innovation at Grupo Familia. Familia is a huge sanitary and body care multi-Latin company, you know, from Colombia, which has been working hard, very hard, hand by hand with the Strateg and on their own as well in the development of new ventures. Lucas is an expert in strategy, innovation, digital marketing, and of course, business development. And we are very, very glad to have him here, you know, with us, sharing his experiences regarding this this difficult thing to do, that is experimenting within a huge traditional company. So thanks, Lucas, for being here. And
thanks, Sebastian. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for hosting, and thanks a lot for having me and let me share a little bit of my experience and also Grupo Familia's experience around rapid innovation.
Awesome. So finally, this is me. I'm the co-founder of Strateg and MVP Lab, which is a business testing lab. So that's why we're talking about this, I think. I'm also, as I said, a lean startup company's ambassador in Colombia. And in essence, I'm a corporate entrepreneur. So I understand how complex, how difficult it is to behave like a startup within big corporations, how difficult it is to have processes, behaviors, cultures toward the systematic experimentation, because companies experiment a lot, but to have it like in a systematic way is really difficult. So after this general intro, please, Ash, tell us a bit more about yourself and give us some general thoughts based on your experience and your knowledge about, of course, the lean startup principle and the experimentation applied within corporate context.
Sure. So just by way of, even from the intro, I think you cover a lot of my background. I came from a entrepreneurial background, have been an entrepreneur for many years, and a lot of my books and writings have all come from real practical experiences, mostly doing things the backwards way for a little while, and then realizing that that was not the most optimal way for building products. And that became maybe a passion of mine, is trying to find a more systematic approach to go from idea to product market fit or scale. So that's a bit of why I do what I do. In terms of the two mantras or the two things you said, a thing that got me into all of this was trying to quickly tell if an idea is good or bad. That's something that we constantly struggle with. All ideas look very promising in the beginning, but how we approach it, the traditional approach is let's do a lot of analysis, but the world we live in today, and especially even more so today in the crisis, is very uncertain. And so how do you really push something forward quickly, but also iteratively? So that maybe is a good segue into what we'll talk about. On the corporate innovation side, I guess we will go through some of the questions or concerns that are in the audience, and maybe I'll leave it for the questions to kind of dive a bit more into some of the challenges, and we can get more tactical on that side.
Good. And Lucas, please tell us a bit about yourself and some general thoughts about the topic.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. I'm Lucas Lopez. As Sebastian said, I work for a company called Grupo Familia. Grupo Familia is based in Medellin, Colombia, but we cater to 10 different countries in Latin America, selling a little bit around $850 million per year. Being having leading brands in big categories such as feminine protection here in Latin America with a brand called Nosotras, also in toilet paper, baby diapers, adult diapers. So This is a company that is like is 60 years old. So we have the heritage of being a very traditional company, but we have been transforming ourselves very quickly since maybe like 3.5 years, having the goal of behaving a digital business, and we call it not only thinking but acting as a digital business. And since we started that journey, we have invested a lot, not only in technology that we have to do it, but invested a lot in understanding how our strategy can be improved and boosted by digital transformation and different innovation methodologies. So far, I think we have been doing amazing things that I'm going to tell you about. But of course, the world is turning so fast that every time you start to measure, maybe not with our competitors, but this transformation has pushed us to measure our strategy not against the industry, but against other industries that are much developed than consumer business products. Because when you take competitors that I'm not going to mention, but like the global competitors we compete with, I can say that we are in a very good place. But when you start to measure with some startups that you find all around the world, and also other industries such as, I don't know, travel industry that right now is not doing very good because of the situation, but that transform itself into digital powerhouses or banks or others, we are not that good. So we have been pushing ourselves so hard, and I would like to share with you some real examples on how a big company can turn digital, and also some of other examples that I have had, not only in companies like Familia, but also mentoring some startups here in Colombia and in other countries in Latin America.
Great, thank you. Well, knowing that experimentation is like a very useful tool for solving complex problems and to face uncertainty and to answer complex and difficult questions, one will think that in time of crisis like the one that we are currently living in, we are where uncertainty is so high, it's extremely high. Experimentation could be the mechanism to move and to navigate the situation like more safely. So do you think this is the case? And if so, how do you make managers of large corporations to understand this?
Or I can take a first stab, and then we can have Lucas definitely chime in. So I would say the first thing is that investing or even experimenting through a crisis is a counterintuitive idea, and that's just the way human nature works. A lot of the things we even talk about in Lean Startup make a lot of common sense, but common sense is one of the rarest senses in practice. So that's part of the challenge there. But it goes back to, even if you just look at people's investment portfolio, personal, like retirement portfolio, when you hit a crisis like this one, there are going to be three types of people. There are going to be those that will panic and will want to sell off their assets and move their money around. Others will keep doing what they're doing, so dollar cost investing, so keep the same investment dollars going in their personal portfolios. And then there's going to be a third group that's going to go more bullish. They're actually going to try to invest even more in this time because everything is on sale. So the way that I look at it is that it's always going to be a function of where the company is and what the health of the company is. When you get a crisis like this one, lots of companies are caught off guard. Many of them are not prepared to go into massive spends and take this risk. So the first human reaction is, let's let's cut costs, let's kind of take a back seat and ride out the storm. And lots of companies have to do that. The other kind of hope side of this is that this is a temporary thing. So we go through the summer and things will get better. But at some point, we have to confront brutal realities. It seems like this is not going to be a short-term thing. It's already starting to give signals that it's going to change the way business is being done really across the globe. In many different sectors, consumer behaviors are changing. Lots of things that we take for granted are probably going to change. Some maybe short-term, some for longer term. Again, uncertainty, no one knows. But all that being said, this is the time beyond the initial recovery phase of let's protect, cut costs, get into a healthier state, build some runway. That's really when companies can then regroup and start looking for newer opportunities. So in struggle, you get opportunities. If we actually look back at historic companies, Apple was on the verge of bankruptcy after the dot-com bust. Steve Jobs did something that lots of people didn't have the stomach to do, which is invest very heavily in innovation. That's what led to the iPod, the iPhone, and then all the other products. So they went from being in a very negative situation to being in a positive one. And they're not the only ones. The list goes on. You can look at companies like HP and Toyota right after the war. They were again going through big crises of their time, build massive companies. In the last 2008 recession, they had Netflix, not Netflix, maybe they were a bit earlier, but you had companies like Slack and Uber and WhatsApp all started in those times. And these are not accidents. It's usually in these times where there are going to be lots of struggles, customers struggling. This is the opportunity where old solutions can be replaced with new ones. And that's where you find that third category of entrepreneurs, innovators that find opportunities in those spaces. So it doesn't really, address the question differently. I mean, it doesn't really address the question directly, I should say. But this whole idea of experimentation through uncertainty is a mindset that has to be developed, and hopefully we'll get into techniques for de-risking, because experiments always seem like a very risky thing, but there are lots of ways of doing it to make it less risky and still look for opportunities in the process. So I'll kind of leave it here, and we can probably go a bit deeper afterwards. So Lucas, okay, would you like to jump in?
Yes, absolutely agree with Ash's thoughts. I would like to add to that what I have learned during these years is that any transformation, especially digital transformation, is not about technology. It's much more about strategy and culture. And when you want to adapt, when you want to become faster and adapt to any change in the market, of course, right now we are having the most disruptive changes that we have seen in the last 10 years, or maybe in the last 100 perhaps. But anytime you want to adapt, I think that adapting, or the capacity of experimenting and adapting, is something that you need to install in your company as any other capability. So you have to start with a plan and know and build a plan on the same thing on how you turn yourself into a innovative company, or a company that is very productive, or a company that is very good on the go-to-market strategy or whatever. The same thing you need to do with the capacity of adapting to whatever you want. So we have a pretty good example in Familia. Of course, as any other company, we were facing challenges since the last 10 years, and especially in the last 5. So we started doing something we call, as I was saying before, like adaptive capability. So we start building that on purpose. So and the first thing we did was figuring out how to put that chip into the culture of Familia and making people behave differently. I cannot say it has been perfect. It's very difficult very difficult, very tough to transform a company that has been very successful for 60 years, to transform it into a company that can adapt as fast as a startup can do it. But as I said before, when you start doing that from the culture of the company, and the first thing you need to do is start lowering down your risk aversion. Of course, if you have been innovative in other ways, it helps you a lot, because innovative companies are more how can I say, are in love with change. When you are innovative, even any methodology used to innovate, but when you do it a lot, as like companies like Grupo Familia has been doing for in its whole life, people like changes, because normally you innovate out of changes. You try to predict what is going to happen, and you build things to be first, or be ahead of the market, and change faster than your competition. So that helped you a lot. But of course, you need to bring new methodologies, because for example, what we do with Estratec, or things as Ash were doing, like startups nowadays have been very technical in the way, in a precise way, on how to learn fast, and how to do these iterations in a faster way. So we have put all those methodologies inside, and it has helped a lot. It has helped us a lot to put people on board, and make people be in love, as I was saying before, in love with change. That is the first thing you need to do. Later on, I will tell you our journey through during this, or how we have done to change even faster during this crisis. But that journey we started 3 years ago. If we have not done that, to installing that capability of adapting faster, we will have not been able to do it as we have done during the COVID-19 crisis.
Yeah, but what you say is so important, because I think that all of us know, that says culture eats strategy for breakfast. So yeah, that's normal. But you said something really, both of you, really interesting, is that I can sum up like you need to have absorptive capacity, to develop that capability of adaptation. And if you want to have like systematic experimentation, definitely you have to embrace adaptation. You have to embrace change, and this is so difficult. Indeed, that's my next question about, because experimentation is a very complex task, and it implies constant failure. And as we all know, organizations are designed to decrease error and maximize success. In fact, I think that the benefit of standardization and control systems is that you maximize success, and you reduce error at minimum. So in that sense, how do you think that it is possible to implement systematic experimentation in large corporations without falling into excessive measurement and control traps? Because you said, Ash, you said, you have to de-risk experimentation, experiments. How to find a balance between that?
Yeah, so maybe I'll jump in here again. But the first thing that I find is a big mindset to change with larger organizations is that just because you are at scale doesn't mean that your experiments need to run at scale. So the first thing to kind of realize is that you can run small experiments with a subset of your groups. And there are, again, many techniques for doing this. At scale, when you look at some of the companies that do this at a very fast speed, and these are the companies that I'm thinking about, are companies like Netflix or Amazon or Facebook, Google. They've got large user bases, but they're not launching new products or new features to everyone. They make very small changes, and so that's a big part of it. Small changes that can be tested in batches are ways for you to de-risk the impact of bad things happening. So this is in the more physical world. This may be segmenting your customer base and testing in certain geographies. If you have a physical store or you've got a physical product, maybe you're testing just in certain retail outlets and testing concepts. So there are ways to kind of de-risk that aspect of it. A big part of it I also want to highlight is we're talking about experimentation, but a point that I always like to make is that we don't start with experiment. You have to start with insights. You have to start with discoveries. And when we just randomly go and say, my business isn't working, let me come up with 10 ideas, growth ideas, and just test them. That's it, this guy, see what sticks strategy. Maybe you'll get lucky and one of those will work, but that's also not a very optimal way to run experiments. Scientists don't go into a lab and say, let's just mix a bunch of compounds and see what happens. They actually have a model, a theory, hypothesis. So there's a process to this. And so for me, before you can do any experiment, you have to gather some insights. And this is where we do problem discovery. And so we have built up some models, and that's what, as I said, I got interested in how to do this. But one of the models we build is a customer model, and it's a behavior change model. And it starts with triggering events. So if we just make this a bit more applicable for today, when there's a triggering event like COVID, you can't have an in-person event like you're having now. So we're on Zoom, right? And with that is going to come new behaviors and new challenges and new problems. Maybe this technology works very well, but maybe a startup is going to find that Zoom is not the best platform for massive events or these kinds of events, and they're going to find new problems to solve. So that's a very simple model, but whenever there's a change, a triggering event, that's a good place to go search for those kinds of insights. And then the next step is devising a small experiment. And if you have a big company, at your disposal, you've got, in theory, all the things you need. You've got access to customers, you have some resources. If startups can devise small tests, you can easily devise small tests, but it is this mindset of not thinking everything has to be big from the go. Yeah.
Great. Use the
Okay,
customer focused canvas to do that.
Very good comments, Ash. From my side, also something that I have learned, and I learned this from one of my professors when I was doing my MBA, my entrepreneurship professor. He said something that the first time I understood that I have applied every time I go to advise, for example, on a startup that is just being created. And the first thing is that a startup is not a small version of a corporation, because there are startups that get it wrong and they try to build their small company the same like a small version of a big one. So you need you have a marketing vice president in a corporation, then you have a marketing manager or something. You don't build it like that. It's a completely different game. And the other way around, a corporation is not a big version of a startup. And what I would like to say with that is that when you're running a big corporation, there are processes that can be or that are much better to experiment fast than others. And what I would like to tell you, for example, is that we have made a lot of mistakes, for example, trying to get into a market and to experiment in something that we already knew, or that was difficult to, or that the experimentation was not going to be that easy. For example, we tried to enter in one of these Latin American countries in the toilet paper category. It's a very well developed category, something that the technology is well known, the channels are well known, the brands are well known, and our experimentation project was not that disruptive to be like just experimented. So when you are getting into something that is very well established, I think you need to do the hard work, the strategy hard work, and have a big plan and be ready to invest. So if we were going to enter, I don't know, a country such as Argentina in diapers, for example, that has these very strong competitors, and we were entering with a similar technology and maybe with some kind of better value proposition, but not a very disruptive one, you cannot experiment. You're going to lose a lot of money if you start experimenting. You need to push hard, and you need to have a very strategic plan. But on the other way around, there are a lot of processes and things that maybe are not in the core of your business that you can experiment. For example, we do it a lot. This experimentation, we do it a lot in our website buildings. When we are building and we are running our websites, it's something that you have the digital capabilities on one side, so the process can be designed very fast. It's not a process such as designing a toilet paper that even if you can experiment, is something that is not easy to make it faster, because you have big assets, big plans. But for example, so what we choose is having like a dual methodology for things that we already know how it has to be done. We just go straight forward. We put our plans, and we assure that the plans and the investment we have can be successful. But on the other hand, we pick some processes of the company, as I was saying before, website building, e-commerce, disruptive ways of advertisement that can be measured digitally. And we experiment very fast in those processes that finally, in the combination of like regular things that happen, the same thing as they have been done for the last 60 years, with other processes that are built on digital and faster methodologies. When you combine that, you can be faster than in competition, but you will not end up like experimenting as Ash said, without the insights needed to have a successful project or a successful experimentation. So you need to mix both things.
Yeah, but how do you do that? I mean, and this is a question for, of course, both of you. How do you do the selling? I mean, how do you convince the board to embrace this, to let you do that? Because, I mean, you can do a lot of things inside a company like this, like a huge company here in Colombia or in States or whatever. But how do you deal with the rush to come up with perfect solutions and solutions that can be tested at low scale? Because you know, companies like Familia and those that Ash advised, you know, all over the world are huge, and they run at huge scales. So how do you selling those ideas? What to do?
Lucas, you want to go first this time?
Thank you, Ash. Yes, that's why I was talking about starting small and not. I was saying you cannot behave like a startup in a big corporation from one day to the other. So you need to start scaling like this kind of entrepreneurial ventures inside. You need to start scaling up. But you need to keep other things working as they have worked in the past. And
but you do it like in secret, like with groups or something like that?
The thing is that when you still have a healthy core, you can start making those mistakes, to say in some way, or you can start being much more flexible in other ventures that are no more than 10-20% of your innovation portfolio, for example, or your processes. Because I have also seen many companies making the mistake of trying to be disruptive on 80 or 70 or 90% of their innovation portfolio when you are a company that doesn't have the capability to do it, or the risk that you don't have in your the owners, the board, and the people don't have the culture to embrace that. So you end up trying to behave like a startup, but not having the real capabilities of a startup. That's why you need to start first very, very small, and like achieving like when you start having small victories and you can show that, the risk aversion of the board of directors or the shareholders of the company start getting down, because they are now, you're showing that there's a different way of doing things, and that different way of doing things is bringing value to the company. Because normally these companies, as you were saying before, they are designed to maximize returns in the short term, and somehow when you start doing, I don't know, 15 projects at the same time, and none of it is bringing return, everybody will go into panic, and everything will stop from one moment to the other. So that's why it's very important to show these small victories really fast, and showing that there's this different way of doing things. And when you have those good examples, like successful examples, then you can start scaling up more and more experiments and more disruptive projects, and you end up having the confidence of the shareholders, the board of directors, and also from the employees of the company.
Okay.
Yeah, and if I was to just add on to that, I mean, the last part that you said is where I'll start with, is that at the end of the day, results speak louder than words or actions. So a lot of this, like, we don't sell the framework or the methodology, because everyone will look at it and say, yeah, it all makes sense, but so did everything that what we're doing currently. Like, we're doing all this analysis, we're doing business planning, we're doing forecasting. So from a logical perspective, you're going to get different people to react to the merits of the framework on its own. So what we always look for is that we don't sell anything to anyone. It's like the saying, you can bring the horse to the water, but you can't make them drink. They have to drink the water on their own. And this is where triggers come into play. And there are many kinds of triggers you can employ. So one of the triggers, so mindset is very important. So some of the things that we do, and what I do, is I create content, I write content, but we talk, I see some questions also in the Q&A about innovation theater and, you know, rewarding leaders, and we can maybe address that in the same fold. If we can go in more detail on that one later. But if you look at where I'm going with mindset, is that you have to start at the executive level. Like, this is not just something for the innovators. Stakeholders need to buy into, there's an old way or a current way that we are building products. The world is changing, and maybe there's a new way. Maybe we should try some of these, and are there safer ways to try? So that's one way. We get calls from big companies saying, we would like to do this. The classic trigger is crisis. There are many newspaper companies and post office companies and all the companies that are business model disruption. You know, they call us because they're saying, you know, we need to save this business model. Sometimes that's too late. Ideally, they should have called us a few years earlier, but that's another triggering event. And then within our organization, we have to remember that there are going to be various kinds of people. You know, Lucas here is in the camp of empirical testing, but in the company, there'll be people ready at different stages. So when we look at a company, we try to identify who are people that are thinking along these lines, and can we give them the tools and the capabilities to go and use this methodology to create some great outcomes very quickly. And again, results speak louder than words. If we can create those outcomes, then the bosses and the managers and the stakeholders and even the peers, the other innovators, say, what did you just do? How have you launched something so quickly? Or how did you get these results so fast? And that creates an opening. It creates an opening for scaling out the framework or the methodology. But you have to, so the way we look at it always is you have to create a big win fast. And this, if you truly believe, all of you who are in either applying this or teaching this or coaching this, if you truly believe that to be the case, you shouldn't shy away from pitting this approach versus the traditional approach. So we even have a challenge. We go to companies and say, fund 2 projects, fund one project where you do this the way you have traditionally done, and fund another project and even give us half the resources or 1/3 the resources. And let's see which ones get you to a decision, a go or no go decision faster. So those are all kind of different tactics we have used, but we don't try to convince everyone to apply. You can only trigger them and influence them. And if they are ready, different people will act at different, in different ways.
So basically it works in Familia because a VP is pushing.
I mean, there can be that kind of thinking. There's a mindset change. I mean, everything Lucas has been saying is that, you have this innovation, at least maybe I wouldn't say you maybe have the culture company-wide, you might correct me, but there's enough of it to where you are given a space to where you can go and prove this out. I know there are many people on the call where they are trying to create that space or find it and they feel a bit helpless, but that's where there are 2 kinds of entrepreneurs. There's the one that asks for permission. We worked with an entrepreneur in Cisco who just called me, he just called me over Skype and said, I have some questions, I read your book. And he built this thing really on his own without getting manager approval, almost got fired, but built something that was so good it couldn't be ignored. And so he just got a warning saying, don't do that again, but what you did was amazing. So let's do more of it. So there are different kinds of ways to, again, tackle this in big organizations. I'm not advocating almost getting fired, but there is that breed of entrepreneur that will ask for permission later, and then there are others who need to get the permission up front.
Good, great. So we're gonna read some questions from the audience, but first I wanna ask you. The last one is regarding this situation. We are seeing, already winners, some winners in this COVID situation worldwide. Also, we are seeing some losers. So the question will be, what do you think that that have been, those key variables for some of them to succeed while others have not? In other words, do you think that there are specific sectors or specific types of companies that would have an easy time experimenting and venturing process or culture or whatever, or what do you think is the key? Is the sector or is the kind of company?
I guess for me it comes down to being difference in mindset. So there's a butcher shop here in Austin that normally would just sell meat. They had a restaurant. Now that business is doing okay, but what they did as a way to be opportunistic is they went and turned part of the store that was a restaurant where people aren't eating. They went and worked with a lot of local stores here in Austin and turned it into a grocery store. So it's a very simple example, but there are other butcher shops here that haven't done it and their business is suffering. So to me, it just comes down to being mindset versus skill set. Everyone is capable of doing these kinds of things, but some are going to, either panic, or some of them are going to be paralyzed and say, let's just wait this out, let's survive. Others are going to be more opportunistic. So to me, ultimately, it comes down to that. And the reason I show the butcher shop example is that it doesn't have to be high tech, doesn't have to be, technology driven. It just comes down to, here's this crisis mode. There's how can we, sell more or help more people in this time, and what are some of the things we can do, and how can we even do things that we normally wouldn't do, right? It's just getting a bit out of that comfort zone. And of course, looking at this at other scale, you can really start a deliberate search. I think there's a lot of startups that will, in 5-10 years, probably become the next big unicorns, because they're going to find some of those insights that I was talking about, some of these behavior change, education, there are lots of sectors that are being challenged. Some things like gyms, our gym's going to go back to normal. So there's lots of places that people will enter in on, and it will change the way we probably exercise or go to movies or do things, provided this sticks, long enough.
Good.
So yeah, so to me, it's really more mindset over anything else.
Good.
Okay. Complementing what Ash just said, I also agree that a lot of your success during this kind of crisis has to do with your mindset and how you take these big disruptions and you can turn them into opportunities or into problems. Of course, the sector you are in, of course, is going to be part of your success. But I think you cannot take this only thinking about these 6 months that COVID-19 has been here. You need to plan the sector you're going to be in for the long run. Normally, the sector you are in can be 40 to 45% of your success, but the other 65% or the other 55 to 65% is based on the moves that you can really do and the strategy you put in place. So I think in this kind of crisis, what you need to do is align your people from the very beginning and put everyone in the reality of having to change really fast. When I think this crisis, what has taught to me is like it has been the best opportunity to see real strategy working. And when I talk about real strategy, is not about the big goals you put into a board or the big dreams and everything. Real strategy is about real plans that can be executed fast. And when everyone is really pushing on small things that you can implement really fast and that is going to bring you to give you a lot of advantage compared to your competition. I have seen that these kind of moments are the ones that if you take advantage of them, everyone is going to really behave strategically in your company, because you have the pressure to change fast, or you have the pressure to find those what I call growth pockets, as Ash was saying, for example, in that butcher shop that found a growth pocket in transforming itself into a small supermarket. Or, for example, as we are doing in Familia, for example, in the first week of March, when nothing was happening here in Colombia yet, or in any country in Latin America, we stopped the production of all the shampoos and soaps we do, and we put all our liquids production plant into disinfecting gel. And that's why, because we had everyone on board of the crisis even before it was here. Everyone knew that this was going to happen, and we made a bet. And of course, the bet was very successful. Right now, we were able to be first in the market and have much more availability compared to our competitors when everybody was out in the stores buying these kind of hygiene products.
Good.
Yep.
Great. Yeah, I think it was very successful. I was very glad when I knew that was going to happen like 3 months ago. Okay, I have a question here for Ash, or a couple of them. But the first one will be about people. Yeah. So they said in corporate environments, we have a lot of project managers, product managers, business analysts, system engineer, agile coaches, and so on and so forth. Yeah. What are your thoughts about, what are your thoughts? Should corporate entrepreneurship and lean startup be a skill that is used by these professions, or should corporate entrepreneurs be like a dedicated profession?
Yeah, so I often make the distinction. I mean, so I find that the innovation groups are generally the early adopters. They're the ones who come because they are tasked with launching new products in these uncertain times. So that's the natural place that we see this in the corporate world. At the same time, there is a newer role. I don't know if it's made its way to Colombia, but here in the US, there's a lot of noise about product managers and the role of the product manager. I look at that role as being someone who has to speak different languages. So they have to understand technical requirements, business requirements, and they translate between the two. And that's an entry point. So they're the early adopters. And when we do, I just did actually a talk yesterday with a product management group and using a lot of this kind of thinking and tools. All that said, I do think that entrepreneurial thinking is problem solving. And if we can get more people involved and learning how to deconstruct an idea, look at risky assumptions, whether you're writing code or you're a designer, the question that we should be asking ourselves is, at the end of that product, there's a customer, are we creating value for them? And everyone can take this on. Everyone can go, and if you are in a bank, you can go to your bank and talk to customers. You can do a lot of the things we were talking about. If you're a developer, you can build more metrics, you can measure things. So there's really no excuse. And that's what we try to instill, is that there are definitely entry points in an organization where we can start, but we want this culture of experimentation, metrics, learning from customers to really spread in every part of the organization. Because whether it's somebody at the line floor in a grocery store, doing a checkout, or it's the manager doing strategy, they all need to have these insights trickle up in their decision making.
Good. Do you think also, there's another question, and I really like it, and I don't know if also Lucas want to share the thoughts, your thoughts in here, but it's regarding the evolution of the method within, in the situation. So do you believe that the running lean and also the scaling lean model has changed with this pandemic situation? And in general, all the theories and the methods and methodologies and tools that we use, and we've been using within corporations, have changed or should change?
Yeah. So I'll say the first thing is that the framework itself has not changed. What I'm constantly trying to innovate around are better improvements in the tools and the techniques. But if you look at fundamentally, you had said that early on, love the problem, not your solution. That to me is the big message of running lean. It's the big message of Lean Canvas, is you have to start with customers and problems. And in a situation like we are in now, there are a lot more problems than we know what to do with. But that's why I say that's a big opportunity, is if we can put our heads together and chase those problems and look for the right solutions, that's where you're going to find those opportunities. So given that set of techniques don't really change, but what has changed, for those of you that have read Running Lean, there is an updated edition that I'm coming out with. There's a new book that I'm writing, and it goes into more deeper problem discovery techniques, and those things are going to be evolving. But to me, the core mindset and the core principles haven't really changed, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Well, Lucas, what happened inside Familia with all the? You have trained a lot of people outside.
Completely agree with Ash. I think fundamentals don't change, but you need to start adapting. For example, our main objective right now is how to be faster in discovering new insights, because it has been it is something that you need very fast because of the industry we are in right now. So depending on which company you are, which industry you are, and the strategy you have, you need to improve some parts of the model. As I was saying before, for example, the way of having new insights here in Familia was the way we choose to accelerate and implement new ways of experimenting, for example. On the other hand, and the first question is, I also agree with Ash in the way of that the way of implementing these kind of things in a corporate environment is finding the early adopters. pushing a new methodology, especially one that is difficult to get adapted to as anything disruptive. You need to find the ones that are more prepared to take it, understand it, and put it in place. And then when you have the successful examples, you will show it to others. And normally, everyone in a big corporation normally it's results oriented. So every time you have results and you show someone, I don't know, a business head, someone that is in charge of a distribution channel or whatever, that there is a better way to have these results, and that will impact his or her business and everything they can do and achieve results in a faster way. Everybody is going to start listening. But the first ones that you need to find are the ones that are really like have this mindset, not that are technically prepared, but have this mindset to accept new ways of doing things.
Okay, good.
And that's, I'm sorry, and I think that's one of the most important role of the leaders when you're trying to find these new ways or implementing new ways of doing things is finding these early adopters, because it's not an easy task. It's not an easy task, and you need to be very aware of how people think, how people respond to failures, how people behave when they are having, or they are in doing something successful, how they behave, and you need to understand those small things. You take those small things, and then you identify who are the ones that can be the what as I call them here is like the positive cancer, something, people that you put into a team and start expanding these new ways of doing things. And you need to put a lot of them in many of the teams to start creating the culture.
We have to learn something from this virus. Okay, it's like a final remark, but it's kind of a question, but just to let you know, just to let you like tell us your final thoughts about it, is that we have a lot of leaders in companies that reward, or are rewarded for undertaking innovation theater, like to have like to show things, but they don't really do systematic experimentation. So I will appreciate if you give us like your final thoughts about it, about how to achieve this transformation inside the culture and the behaviors of the company towards the implementation of a systematic experimentation process.
Yeah, so I think some of the things we have touched on, and one of the key themes was, results speak louder than anything. But short of that, I know not everyone can go off and do an experiment without permission and get a big result. So you have to sell that. Short of that, insights are the next best thing. So again, we have got lots of these little stories of even developers. And this was a big bank in Finland, very conservative, but these developers went and gathered some insights from bank customers and brought that back to their managers, not as we think this is what we should do, but rather this is what we learned from our customers, and they had recorded their customers and showed the recordings. So bringing the customer voice inside is the next best thing that one can do. So as you're coming up with ideas, don't just go to your managers and say, this is an idea I want to implement. If you can back it up with any kind of evidence, even if it's anecdotal from a customer, that's the place to start the opening. I've found that at the end of the day, even though the organization has a lot of different players, as Lucas was saying, everyone wants results. Everyone wants good results. So we're looking for good ideas. The hard thing is there's too many of them. Which ones do we focus in on?
Mm-hmm. But good results are going to be always money.
Not necessarily. So it again depends on, I mean, in a situation like this, there's definitely, strategic plays, there's opportunistic plays. So there are many things. So a good way to break it down for those of you that are looking at the right metrics, at the end of the day, we want to bring it down to probably a lift in revenue, but you might be able to create a lift in engagement or a lift in, brand awareness. There are all kinds of things that are leading indicators towards future money. So even in our own business, we're doing a lot of very strategic things, planting a lot of seeds right now because we can, with customers who their budgets are frozen, they may not have the money to spend today, but 6 months from now, we are banking on them coming back and saying, we really appreciate that you helped us in these times, and we want to do more with you, right? So there's a lot of that kind of stuff, which doesn't always have to be directly tied to short-term revenue. You have to kind of do what's right for the customer and work through that.
Okay, Lucas, 2 minutes or something.
Yeah.
Like this.
So basically, you need to define and be very clear on how you measure success, and you need to measure innovation success by consumer adoption of your product, sales, or profits. You cannot measure innovation by awards, and how you do that is leading by example. Anytime someone brings an award to a presentation and I don't know, showing that was the big success, just turn around and say, okay, where are the please show me what's the consumer saying about this innovation. What are they adopting it? How much is selling it? How much is it selling? And don't let the awards or anything else make you very happy. The only thing that should make you happy is the opinions of our consumers and how you sell it. Nothing else.
Okay, great. Well, unfortunately, we ran out of time. We have like 10 or more questions, but we cannot answer all of them. We want to thank you both guys for being here, for sharing your thoughts about it, your experiences about it, everything with us very openly. So I want also to thank this great audience. We had I think more than 100 people. So I hope you had enjoyed. Thanks for your time. Remember that you can also keep posting questions, and where to find you guys, where to find you Ash, where to find you Lucas, if people want to ask you something weird. You like weird things.
So first, I would thank you, Sebastian, for hosting. It's really a pleasure to be on. Most of what I do is all on LeanStack, so leanstack.com. My email also is very simple, ash@leanstack.com. So if anyone has any pressing questions that we didn't get to, feel free to drop a note, and I'll carve out some time to at least give you a short reply or point you to a resource that I can maybe address if it's something I've found before.
Okay.
You can find me on LinkedIn as Lucas LL, or you can shoot me an email to lucasll@grupofamilia.com. We are very happy. We are very happy always to share our experience here in these developing countries.
Okay, thank you so much. You can follow us, in our social media channels, Strateg_Ventures and Lean Startup, and in our websites that you see here. Thank you so much again, guys, and have a good night. Still not night yet. I mean, startup afternoon or something like that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
See you later.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.